MIDDLEKAUFF! Baby, hey! What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's another edition of Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. I'm Guy. That is John. Great to have you.
Hey, Bosa.
Mexico got knocked out. Oh, man. I was in my bag. No idea if I was in my bag or not, but I was enjoying myself on Wednesday. I flip on some soccer.
Bag of French fries, or
I flip on some soccer. It's Argentina. Is that Messi's guys?
Messi's Argentinian. Yeah,
it's Argentina, Poland. Poland is gonna advance as long as Mexico in another game. Mexico, whoever they're playing,
they won 2-1. I saw
they won 2-1, but they had to score like another goal actually.
Gotcha.
Because goals, they were tied. Poland and Mexico were tied, and goals scored was going to be their tiebreaker. But they were tied in goals scored, so it went to the fifth tiebreaker, which was Boy Scout points or whatever they call it. Good Samaritan points. I don't remember what they call it. But the tiebreaker was yellow and red cards. Yellow and red cards was the tiebreaker. And Mexico had like 7 yellow cards, and Poland had like 4 yellow cards. So that was going to be the tiebreaker, unless Poland gave up a goal. And Argentina was fucking peppering Poland's net. They were up 2-0, and they were not resting anybody. Nobody was sitting. They were just hammering the poor Poles, who were hanging on for dear life to their spot in the next round of the World Cup. God forbid they got a red card. That would have been a disaster. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. But I found it. I don't know what you're doing over there. I was very entertained by it.
A little light right here. I don't know where it's coming from.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
It's just the light coming from the door.
Shining down.
Yeah, someone DM'd me yesterday, said keep the soccer takes coming. They were fantastic. So that's a good little breakdown.
Yeah. I think the NFL should institute like a penalty tiebreaker.
Like most pass interferences?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, offsides.
Defensive holding.
Personal fouls. The more personal fouls, the more likely you are to advance because your team's probably entertaining.
Did you know? Well, I think you know one of them because I text you. That Jed's squad in the EPL doesn't just have 1, but 2 American starters on the squad. Starters.
There's like 4 people on the internet that are constantly tweeting at me about Leeds, which I appreciate. I don't complain. But I did not know that. No.
Do you know that the 49ers have the outright ability to buy the team? One right now they own 44% and the other guy owns 56%.
Oh, I thought they already upped it. Or this
well, they did. They went from like 10 to 20 to 44, but by 2024, they have the ability to purchase the entire thing to themselves. Wow. He is going to own. And I mean, he is Kroenke, the Glazers.
Yep.
And in 2004, Leeds was a top 5 or 6 team in European in the EPL. So fucking coming with America.
Are they in the top tier right now?
Yeah, they got bumped up.
All right. Al Guido, go get it. So John, 2024. Here's some things that'll happen in 2024. Jed will become the complete controlling owner of Leeds. The college football playoff will expand. The Broncos will still have 3 years left on Russell's contract.
So did the Rose Bowl bow out of being the Rose Bowl?
Well, there's still the Rose Bowl. I think what they did was give up. Like what they wanted to do was hold on for dear life to January 1. But you can't be a part of the playoff and guarantee that you're always going to play on January 1 because things rotate. So
they were like the last landowner in a hostile takeover that's like, okay, I'll give in.
Yeah.
And they gave in to their spot.
They gave in because, like, of course they did.
But they're going to play at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, it'll still be the Rose Bowl. It's just the Rose Bowl is also the January 1st Rose Bowl parade, all of that, which I'm sure it'll be worth it. And they can find you can still do the parade on Jan 1 or figure it out, whatever. I don't know exactly.
Because the playoffs is going to start before Jan 1, correct?
Yeah.
We're not getting 3.5 week break for a game.
You would think not.
No.
Yeah. You don't have time.
Which is not needed.
Isn't it funny that like the NFL just gets into just now we're in the meat of the NFL season and college football is just done. Saturdays are just about over.
Sad.
We are sponsored by our wonderful friends at Tito's Handmade Vodka, John. Tito's Handmade Vodka. This is an awesome sports weekend. You got Bloody Mary, 7 a.m., USA, Pacific, 7 a.m., or wherever you are, 8, 9, 10, wherever. It's going to be Bloody Mary time in the United States of America for USA and Netherlands, who rock the Tito's orange. And, what a great time. Or a Friday night, Pac-12 championship game Friday, Saturday college football all day long. Sunday all day long. Thursday, if you're listening to this before Thursday night football is actually good tonight, in theory. Bills, Pats. Tito's handmade vodka, John, goes with any holiday, goes with any game, goes with any mood. Goes with any mood.
What if you're in Hawaii? I mean, you got to get up at 4 a.m. to watch the soccer game.
Yeah. Good
so
call.
You really need a Bloody Mary. Just add some Tito's. Bloody Mary, Tito's, hard to beat it. Tonight, Sunday night or Thursday night football, Friday night football with the Trojans versus those Utah Utes, which I think is going to be a sneaky Utah home game. Salt Lake City is not
sold out.
Yeah, I think the environment is going to be the best Pac-12 championship environment ever.
I've begun to think, well, I agree with that. It's a sellout at Allegiant Stadium. I can't imagine they ever had a sellout at Levi's.
They did not.
I'm beginning to think that maybe we just shouldn't hand this game to USC so quickly.
I would agree.
So
I think it's going to be tough. And if you're a Trojan fan, you might need Tito's. So go buy yourself a bottle because you might need it for Friday when you kind of get screwed if you lose the game because you got to play an extra game and Ohio State takes your spot. But that's for another time, another place. At least you got Caleb Williams. At least you got Lincoln Riley, and you'd probably head to the Rose Bowl. I guess you wouldn't actually, because would Utah head to the Rose Bowl if they win this game?
Utah would go to the Rose Bowl, yeah.
That's kind of cool. So they actually have a lot on the line, back-to-back Rose Bowls.
Because if they lose, they're probably not going to the Rose Bowl. They could, but they're probably not.
But they wouldn't probably even get a BCS game, right?
A New Year's 6?
I guess BCS doesn't exist
Probably
anymore.
not, because they'd be a 4-loss team.
So a lot on the line. Trojan fans, get your Tito's out. And hell, I mean, if it goes well, you'll be celebrating. If it goes bad, you'd be drowning your sorrows.
Hey, Ute fans, for those of you that celebrate, you've been to Salt Lake City, John. Salt Lake City, sneaky good bar scene. Tito's a great order there. Do they make Tito's in the old-fashioned pot stills? Yes, they do. Is it harder? You damn right it is. Is it better? Absolutely it is. Do it right. Do it tight. I don't know if that's Tito's slogan, but it might be. Tito's incredible, John. When he started the thing, as you know, back in 95, or actually pre-95, he wasn't like Googling. He was looking at old photos of moonshiners and Prohibition-era alcohol makers and just kind of building his stills and copper pipes. He used like an outdoor fryer. And he just started cooking the Walter White of Austin Tito's and now of the world, and certainly of this red, white, and blue. So Tito's handmade vodka. Go get it. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof. Crafted to be savored responsibly.
You know what I love about a good documentary from the 90s is when you want to find information and you can't just go to this little thing called the Apple iPhone and just type it into the internet. You had to go to the library.
Yeah. Or like go find somebody and talk to them.
Remember those roller things with the newspapers?
I do. We're also brought to you by ButcherBox. Free ground beef for life right now. ButcherBox.com/ham. Code ham. Free ground beef for life. ButcherBox.com/ham. Code ham. Go do it.
Go do it right now. ButcherBox.com/ham. Free ground beef for life. Like I said, just go to ButcherBox.com. Check it out. They got organic chickens. They have steaks, ribeyes, T-bones, obviously ribs. It's fantastic ribs. Can't recommend them enough. Curate your box, delivered right to your house. And plus, guy, free shipping?
Yeah.
Free shipping.
Yep.
So how do you beat that? You get ground beef for life, free shipping. They're our friends. They've been longtime partners. You and I have eaten their food many times.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. They deliver it in those styrofoam cold boxes, so that it comes ready to rock and roll. Unlike I went to Trader Joe's for the first time in a decade last night. Your cold boxes there aren't even closed. These are closed. So, get on it.
Get on it right now. ButcherBox.com/ham. Use the code ham when you check out. So you got a double ham for limited time. Our listeners, ground beef for life, plus $10 off your first order. Ground beef for life. In every order, you're going to get ground beef for the life of your membership. And I mean, use ground beef. I could eat ground beef 7 nights a week. ButcherBox.com/ham. Code ham to claim this deal.
I think Trader Joe's a little weird for me.
How so?
I don't know, something about I'm just a normal store guy. I don't, somewhere in the middle. I don't quite know what it's going for. I like a store that's either like a convenience store where it's just all kind of right there, or just a grocery store. It's kind of in the middle. but then it has like their versions of things, so I don't
Yeah.
really know what's going on.
Yeah, I can see that.
Not my vibe.
I love it. 90% based on I can get around it in 8 minutes. It's just I get lost in a Safeway.
I just know what I'm looking for in a Safeway, so I can boom,
Tortillas.
boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Boom. I know where the peanut butter is, the ketchup is, the meat is, and they just hit it. I can be in and out of a Safeway in 15 minutes.
Corey says, I picked the Niners to lose twice this year, Atlanta and Miami. They have to score points. Can't fall far behind. I guess he picked them to beat the Chiefs. That was a tough L, but
yeah.
But I mean, hey, picking them to lose to Atlanta was a good bet. Here's a little nug for you, John. The 49ers, when they played the Chiefs, allowed 44 points. Since the Chiefs game, they've only allowed 40 total points. 40. 4 games, they've allowed 40 points since they allowed 44 to the Chiefs. Well, Chiefs are good. Chiefs are a real contender. Chiefs are the number 1 offense in the league. The Rams, on the other hand, stink. And the Chargers, no Keenan Allen, Mike Williams in that game. The Cards, no Kyler, no Ertz. Rondale Moore got hurt like on the 4th play. The Saints, well, you just watched them, Andy Dalton. The Dolphins are much closer to the team that scored 44 than any of the teams they faced the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's been all well and good to dominate, 4th quarter shutouts, all that. But the Dolphins are 6th in the league in scoring. This is a different animal.
Well, who's the best team they've beat up to this point for being a team that I think gets Super Bowl contention, gets respect as one of the best teams in the league? You look at the resume. If this was college football, their resume up to this point would be pretty questionable.
It is a college football resume, right? Like you would choose to play a lot of the teams. Seattle, is that the best team they've beaten?
I mean, do you think the Chargers are going to end up making the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, the version of the Chargers they played, but yeah, I mean, I think the Chargers are good. Yes.
Yeah, because they're quarterback. Seattle, it feels like Seattle got better post the 49ers win, but I still think the 49ers are going to beat them again. Like I don't think Seattle's a playoff team. So
I looked today, Geno Smith has the number 1 completion percentage in the league when he's not pressured. He's 77%. Well, you don't get to not be pressured when you play the Niners.
I think the 7 seed comes down between the Giants or Seattle, and Seattle might just have the edge based on their schedule. You know, they play the Rams twice. You know, Seattle's like a 7-point favorite on the road this week against Bryce
really?
Perkins.
No.
So, yeah. So the 49ers, this would easily be their biggest win of the season. And part of having, like, I see some people throwing around historic defense. This defense is really good relative to the NFL, like the 2022 NFL. Historic NFL, they're missing players. I mean, they're just, I mean, you can't, they're not as good as they were earlier in the season based on Mosley is better than the corner they're rolling out and not having Eric Armstead, who is their second best defensive lineman. Their second best defensive lineman has not played. I can't even remember the last time he's
practiced this week, though.
He did. And hopefully he comes back. Like that is a big deal for him to come back. But like what they've been doing this against is, like you said, Andy Dalton, Colt McCoy, which is what you had to do. You can only control who you're playing. But like you can't, like if you win this game, let's say 28-25, like part of being do you think most common fans view this as an all-time defense? Because the one thing 49er fans, I think, know, all their best teams, whether you're our age, whether you're older, they've all, from Walsh to Seifert to Harbaugh to now Kyle, have been defensive-led teams, right? And the Harbaugh defenses, I think, were better than this defense. League was a little bit different. And some of the Walsh, I mean, the 49ers defense, when we were kids in 94 that won the Super Bowl, had like 7 All-Pros, led by Deion fucking Sanders. I mean, I like Nick Bosa, and he's headed that way, but Deion Sanders is like a top 5 defensive player of all time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think people talk about this defense with the reverence that like an all-time great defense gets, but they do get talked about like the number 1 defense in the league, which in many
is important
categories they are.
Yeah, which
but
they deserve.
Part of those numbers have been built. You just have to acknowledge this. Part of those numbers have been built against bad offenses. Who are the best quarterbacks they've played? I mean, obviously Herbert, right? But is Tua the second best quarterback they've played this year?
I mean, Mahomes.
Oh, yeah, Mahomes.
And he fucking eviscerated him.
Is Tua the third best quarterback they've played this year? I got to do a quick review of the schedule here, but I think he might be.
Fields, Geno, Stafford, they kicked his ass, who was terrible this season.
Yeah. So, but whatever. I mean, like you said, you can only beat the teams you can beat. This game is a playoff team, right?
Yeah.
This is a playoff game. Now, on one hand, you go, well, you've won 4 in a row, so you've helped yourself out. You just stabilized.
For sure.
There aren't, no tie break. This isn't some tiebreaker thing. This game is going to come back to bite you in that way at a later date. You taking control of your division. You're better than Seattle, so you should win your division, all that stuff. But I do think some of the give them their flowers from the last game, and we did, and the Arizona game for sure, we did. Everybody did. Like, this is a week where if you go beat Miami, whether you play great defense or whether you just outscore them, either one, now I think you really start talking about, okay, you're a Super Bowl contender. And I think it's going to be the same for Miami. Going on the road to play the Niners, like, we're going to be talking about Miami like a real Super Bowl contender if they win this game.
For sure. And listen, if you win this game and you're 8-4, I think you, me, every 49er fan would have signed up. I told you at the beginning of the season, 12 games in 8-4. Are you signing up for that?
Yeah.
Before you play a game?
100%.
Even though I think there were visions of potentially being like a 13-14 win team, you would have signed up for 8-4.
You would have thought that puts you at second place in the NFC West, maybe behind the Rams or something, but you would have taken it.
And who knows? Maybe they're 9-3. You're right there in the mix.
Knowing that 10 wins puts you in the playoffs in the NFC.
For sure. So 8-4, it doesn't matter. It's because I think we'd all agree, a little weird how they got here. It's been another little
story of Kyle Shanahan's life, John.
Yeah, a little bit of a roller coaster.
Snyder tenure.
You're 8-4, and you just beat Miami, which, like we've just said, is a fantastic win. And you got Tom coming in, which, in a weird way, it feels like an easier game, though that game will definitely be hard. But you just, to me, it feels like under Kyle Shanahan now for 3 straight years, the quarterbacks they've had successes against are guys that can't move and are not athletic quarterbacks. Like Mahomes, Josh Allen, obviously Kyler when he's healthy. Guys that can get outside the pocket and throw the ball. That is not Kyler's deal. That is not Tua's deal. Wrong little quarterback. In fairness, Tua, people like him.
Likeable.
This is where Tua is very likable. I've seen some press con. He is a fun guy. He messes with the media a little bit, and they laugh. I enjoy Tua.
Really studies tape.
Tua? Yeah, tries. Just tries. But he's not an athletic guy. And he's a sitting duck if you have a good pass rush against an offensive line, which is who knows who's actually going to play. I think they're trying to act like guys are going to play that probably are not. So you should eat this guy alive. He is not running away. Even Andy Dalton, there were a couple times last week, he just took off. Andy Dalton's a good athlete. Again, I say this relative to NFL players. Relative to everyone listening, me and you, obviously all these guys are really good athletes. Tua's a good athlete relative to society. But relative to quarterbacks in 2022, he's on the bottom end. And it's why, like, when you start looking at the playoffs, like, Dak's a problem. Jalen will be a problem. Cousins, not as much, right? I mean, guys that just can't move. The Niners, when they've won games, have eviscerated those type guys. So Tua falls in. I think it's weird because small little quarterbacks, you go, I bet he's a move around, run around guy. That is not his deal at all. He is a pocket quarterback. Do you know who Kyle Shanahan compared him to? Matt Schaub. He reminds me a lot of Kyle in a weird way, took a shot. He was just thinking like all of us. He's like, they asked him, what have you thought of what Mike and Tua have done? He's like, coming in the year, I didn't quite know how it was going to look. Kind of like, most people didn't feel that good about Tua. He's like, I watched him in the first couple of preseason games. I could tell like he kind of got him going. And by the first couple of regular season games, clearly he likes watching his guys. And Kyle's talked about like he just watches other teams play. And maybe it's just as simple as he's playing this team later. He's just keeping an eye on Mike. But he's like, he reminds me of Matt Schaub. And the way he described it, actually, it sounds like a shot when you say that name. Kyle's not thinking about it like that, but just the outside. Like,
yeah, Kyle's like, you guys don't understand. I hold Matt Schaub in high regard.
If just like he puts his foot in the ground, the ball's out. And, these guys get a Woody for that, right? 1, 2, 3, ball out. And very decisive with where you're going with the ball. And when you watch Tua play, it feels like, God, where's this ball going to go? And then a guy would just kind of comes under it. But it's all from within the pocket. All of it. Which I think bodes pretty well for the Niners. And hell, next week, I mean, it's Tom fucking Brady, but Tom goes nowhere. And now is Wirfs is out. So it's like you have to eviscerate these quarterbacks in a weird way. Heineke is nowhere near Tom Brady or even Tua this year. But if you watch Heineke, like he kind of runs around, you know? I can already see Heineke making some plays on the Niners, just like does a 360 in the pocket, runs around, hits Terry McLaurin. Like those are the things that the Niners, because they're very fundamentally sound. They're always in the right spots, but like they will miss you with the defensive linemen, right? Because they're coming up field. Well, they don't with athletic guys. They do not miss guys that are stagnant. That's
Dalton
where it's
made
like
guys miss.
Yeah, that is not Tua's thing.
Yeah,
that's what I think is a huge advantage this week of getting Tua. Because he can't run. If I told you he was a big-time athlete, it would be scary. Like even if he doesn't have a great arm, but he can run around. Like, oh, it's going to be a nut day. He is a pocket quarterback.
Yeah. I think the thing he's got going for him, though, and that still makes it challenging for the Niners is that Mike McDaniel, even though their thing has not necessarily been to the same degree that the Niners like to run the quick game, but they can do that, right? They can just get the ball into Tyreek's hands, end arounds, bubble screens, Jalen Waddle. Like I would imagine Mike McDaniel's game plan this week is just to get the ball out of Tua's hands as quickly as possible. And he's got, his own little yak bros over there that can still create problems for you if you don't tackle.
Well, do they try some of the Chiefs stuff?
Absolutely they do. And I think the Niners have been better against that type of stuff since the Chiefs game, but these guys have Isaiah Pacheco. They got their own Isaiah Pacheco, number 10, That's
Pacheco's pretty sweet,
right?
Bro.
Isaiah Pacheco.
He's good.
He fucking looks just like Tyreek. It's crazy.
Runs really hard.
Put 10 on him, and you for a second, if you were groggy or just woke up from a nap, you think you were watching like an old Chiefs game. So, like, I do think Mike McDaniel has a counter here to the Niners pass rush, and I do think. Do you think you're gonna have to score points?
You're not winning this thing 13-7.
Yeah. You gotta. I mean, I don't know if you got to score 31, but you have to actually score touchdowns on the red zone, which is a major problem for the 49ers.
Which their defense is not good. Like one thing you would say about the Saints when they're relatively healthy is like Dennis Allen, defensive coordinator, putting together a defense should be pretty solid. Is their team going to be good? Are they going to Mike McDaniel's their defense is not good. It's not good. So like you got to take advantage of that. Now they do have a couple interesting pass rushers that depending on how they rotate them, like obviously 71 is not going to be a problem, but there was a play last week that kind of went viral where McGlinchey was blocking air. And it's just like, there are just consistent plays where the guy goes by him, but then he stays in his stance. Everyone else is on guys. Trent Stone and a guy, and McGlinchey's blocking like the ghost of Bourbon Street. It's like, I am telling you.
The who?
Because they're playing the Saints. Ghost.
No, that's really good. I like
that. Just nobody. And because he's like, I'm Notre Dame, Brian Kelly, fundamentally sound. Like you're just not that good. And you're kind of a liability. I would rather have a liability at guard or center than just that, because at least you got bodies in there to help. He's just constantly kind of by himself.
Yeah, I mean, pressure up the middle is a pretty.
I know, thing. But at least you could just always take the center over there.
Yeah, so they got Bradley Chubb, they got Jalen Phillips,
who actually looks pretty good. Who they've kind of moved to stand up linebacker. That's the UCLA Miami guy, right?
That's the UCLA Miami guy, and then they got Melvin Ingram,
who's about 60 years old, but he's still going.
Just put him on Trent and take Trent out by having him, and then put, I don't know, Phillips and Chubb on the other side or something.
McGlinchey, man. It's weird because in football, I guess if you're a sales guy and you have a sales meeting once a quarter, it's like, well, you didn't sell anything. So it's like back when everyone was always in the office, you'd get exposed. In football, every single week, you're watching the tape of yourself with other people on your own team. So it's pretty clear. It's, great players have bad games, but like every single week, like is Forrester just berating him? I mean, what are we doing? Or does he just know like this guy has limitations that screaming at him? I just got to keep his confidence up
for not throwing the ball deep.
Yeah, you just got to keep his confidence up to play the best of his ability, which is probably a C+.
A question from Brian. He says, isn't Christian McCaffrey permanently day-to-day? Well, that is a problem. Did not practice Wednesday. I've not seen yet today what it's gone on Thursday. So
probably out there now.
You would, as you listen to this, you may already know. I'm not sure if it's raining down there, but
It is.
That might affect the way you.
Barrows Row or Lombardi, it was like 53 degrees. Is it raining where you are?
Yeah, it's raining in the North Bay, but I just mean, if a guy has a knee that is uncomfortable, do you put him out there in wet conditions? Maybe not. I think it's safe to say, without being alarmist, without being dramatic, without being over the top, that it is officially a concern. It's not your worst fears have come true. It's far from that. But the fears you had when you acquired McCaffrey, that he has had trouble staying healthy in his career, like, this is part of that, right? It's not always Elijah Mitchell. You just know 6 to 8 weeks out, ACL tear. That stuff is devastating too. But just having some discomfort, or what discomfort hasn't been the word they've used for McCaffrey's knee, but just like an unidentifiable, undefinable issue. It's a problem. This is a problem.
My question with this is already, when a guy, it happened to Sherman when he started having Achilles soreness, and it happens to a lot of guys, and then they just say, well, it's going to rip eventually, so you just play through it. Do they already internally go, this is going to be something in the offseason that we're going to have to scope? We're just going to have to play through it? Or is this just something completely random? Because yesterday, watching Kyle Shanahan, he completely paused when they kind of went, well, what's actually his deal? Like, what is his injury? He looks down at the paper, which obviously he wrote the paper. He knows. I think he was trying to really think this through, and he's just basically like, we'll just see what happens tomorrow, and hopefully he can play in the game. And yeah, that'd be our goal. And I just it hit me because I was skeptical of the amount they gave up for an injured running back. Then 2 weeks in, he has 3 touchdowns, 3 different ways. It was remarkable. Walter Payton, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Christian McCaffrey. Like, that game immediately went down in like NFL historical, like all-time great perspective. When you that's those 3 names. And given that they had just traded for him. So then I pivoted and went like, well, fuck, can't miss it now. What he already did for you, because he helped them win that game. And then you realize when you trade for an injured guy, it's hard to anoint a trade quickly, right? Because the more and more games you play, the more chance the guy can get injured. And let's face it, like, they're going to be playing well into January. A place Christian McCaffrey just has not. Hell, he hasn't even been playing like the last couple of years. He's been in irrelevant games. And it's
part of what's attractive about him being a Niner is all of a sudden he'll get to be on this playoff stage, right?
I think part of what makes him attractive, just watching him play for the Niners, is why John and Kyle probably really liked him, because he lowers his shoulder. He's physical. He's tough. He's an impressive guy just in terms of just like competitive character. But this is a major concern. I mean, it really is. If Elijah Mitchell wasn't hurt, it wouldn't be as big a deal. But they did trade their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks for him. Like, they did invest when they already don't have a 1st round pick. When you say they invested, given the resources that they have, a shitload.
Yeah.
And you can keep, well, the team's so good as a 3rd round likely. Yeah, you just need bodies. Clearly, like, they drafted some guys last year that a couple years later are helping them out now, right? Aaron Banks, starting starting guard, right? Ty Davis Price will eventually contribute, you'd think. Was it Ambry Thomas or Lenore? I think Lenore actually went first. Thomas was second. Pretty sure Lenore was a 3rd round pick a couple years ago. Like, those guys, they may not help year one, but they help your team. You don't have to sign random corner because you have this guy that you drafted. And now your chips are in the middle of the table on this guy to be contributing. And he has an injury that they could easily know and they're not telling. But it wouldn't totally shock me if, we're not quite sure, but he doesn't feel comfortable with his knee, which is pretty fucking scary for a running back.
But I think to me, the part that's been most eye-opening watching him is how important to their passing game he is. I know last week he was under 3 yards a carry, but the thing that watching him has told me about them and him together is that in some ways I think he's more important to them in the passing game. He averages almost 6 targets a game. He's got 29 targets in 5 games. Okay, 29 targets in 5 games. Ayuk has 72 targets in 11 games, which is 6.5 targets a game. 29 divided by 5 is basically 6. So he's getting targeted at a very high rate. And a lot of his targets seem to come not just at critical times, but at critical times in a play, right? He's usually not the first option in a passing play, but he's Jimmy's safety valve. So Garoppolo is a guy who likes to, who's confident in his ability to hold. And Garoppolo sometimes just holds the ball with faith that something's going to happen before he's going to find somebody. He's going to find somebody. And because he's got that quick release, he can do it. And boom, he gets it out to McCaffrey. And I think that's been the part that obviously we all know Christian can catch the ball. I didn't quite anticipate that even on days when his run efficiency is not very good, that his pass value is going to be really high. And, maybe Tevin Coleman can do that for you too. You're just throwing it to him. But I think that's the part that maybe they knew they were getting that, and they thought that he'd be really valuable for Jimmy just because the Niners dink and dunk the ball a lot. I think you really missed that playmaking on 3rd and 8 when you just have to dump it down to Christian, right? Or whatever. Play on 2nd and 8. That's the part that even more so than just the run game. But the run game, it's clearly like when he's been on, you could see like he looks different. So to not have Elijah Mitchell at all, and to clearly whatever Christian McCaffrey is, if you told me he practiced Thursday, he's playing Sunday, no one's going to pretend that he's 100%, right? Or that whatever the issue isn't going to pop back up. I think it's a good diagnosis when a doctor tells you all you need is rest. But, it can also be a little open-ended when a doctor tells you like a doctor gives you some antibiotics, like, here, take these, you're going to knock this thing out in 3 days. When they tell you rest, it's just, they're basically saying nothing we can do for you. So good luck. You got to be patient. And, the NFL for injuries is it's hard to be patient with a guy you traded a lot for and you really need. I'm not saying they can't be patient with him. I'm just saying if they have to be patient with him, you're kind of in no man's land, not knowing when he's going to be healthy. Look at what just waiting on Armstead has become, right? I'm not saying there was anything they could have done differently with Armstead, but you don't really know what you're getting.
I was wrong. Ambry Thomas went in the 3rd round.
Ambry Thomas ahead of Diamador Lenore.
Yeah, he went in the 5th. But it does speak to, if I was going to counter myself. So they had 2 3rd-round picks in 2021. They didn't have a 4th-round pick, but let's just use their 2/3, like equivalent of a 3rd and a 4th. Aaron Banks, starting left guard. Trey Sermon, who is not on the team a year later. And Ambry Thomas, who clearly got completely passed by Lenore, right, and Womack. So if I wanted to counter what they gave up for him, they still have 5th-round picks, and that's where Lenore went, right? And Jalen Moore was also a 5th-round pick, and he's played for them. So it doesn't guarantee you anything. I think that'd be the first thing you'd say. But once he is on your team, you are depending on him. And you do have the red flag. That's what makes me nervous. Because part of where I think they would say, well, it wasn't just for this year. He's under contract, right? Well, you're going to be depending on him next year as well, right? And him and Elijah Mitchell are going to be, I would say, however this offseason shakes out, those guys will, in theory, be healthy coming into training camp, and they will be viewed as the 2 starting running backs, correct? They're going to be your 2 best running backs. And one, I'm sure I can already tell you what we'll be talking about. Well, you got Mason, Ty Davis Price. Do they need a good spot for another undrafted free agent? Like, they're going to need depth at that position. Can they find a guy for a veteran minimum that Kyle's had before in years past to, bring back type deal? Because that's a position that they are dependent on. They, like you said, they throw that ball to that gut position no matter what, right? When Debo transitioned there, he just became that's where they get him the ball. And if we're gonna he really is a wide back. He's not a true wide receiver. And part of their offense and their quarterback and their offensive play caller is predicated on throwing the ball as far as the line of scrimmage and behind. And that usually is Debo. I guess they can do it occasionally to Ayuk, but it feels like that's not his main play, and the running backs.
Did you watch any of the Niners Cardinals episode of Hard Knocks?
You told me not. I told you not. So I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't.
Is the game action not good?
Well, it was like here's 6 minutes sitting down at dinner with one of the Cardinals because he's from Mexico. And it's just a lot of like, man, we're so proud of you. It was just
anything on the O-line coach getting fired for groping
barely.
the chick in
It's
Mexico?
just Cliff apologizing to the team. Like, guys, this is not for me and the coaching staff. We apologize. Like, yeah.
When they were in Mexico?
It looked like it looked like they were back at the Cardinals facility, like they were back home when it happened.
Oh.
Weird. I don't know. But one of the things was there were a few moments. One of them was the Cardinals. I don't know if it was their D-line coach. I don't think it was their defensive coordinator. It's always funny when you're watching film and they're like, all right, guys, 19, gonna have to tackle him. Like they talk about these guys like no one knows it's Deebo Samuel. He's like 19, likes to get the ball into space, very difficult to tackle. 23, one of the best running backs in the league. This guy's also difficult to tackle. But one of the thing the coach said is like 19 and 23, they're basically interchangeable. That was like part of the scouting report, right? So when you call Christian a wide back, it's just like Deebo. That's how the Cardinals defense approached it, basically interchangeable.
So if you look at it, let's just give their coaching staff the benefit of the doubt on the way that they viewed it. It makes the trade way more we could just get another Deebo Samuel. Because you would trade, if I could just say, in Kyle's mind, I can just get you Deebo Samuel 2.0. Would you trade your second, third, and fourth round pick? Of course you would, right? To have two Deebo Samuels on this team, because you basically have one on the left, one on the right with Ayuk running around.
Yeah.
So it's like
put them in the backfield together, which he did.
So yeah, it makes sense. Now, I think here's the concern with it all: is Deebo has battled injuries, Christian has battled more injuries, and is an older player, and
they are both currently battling injuries,
and they're both. I mean, technically, this year Christian for them is not as expensive, but I'm pretty sure next year's like $11 million. Deebo makes a lot of. I mean, you're heavily invested into these two human beings, right? Like your asset allocation financially, what you've traded for them, and now moving forward, what you're going to pay both of them. And I feel good. Like Deebo earned it. Like Christian is just, did he earn it all in the one game? It felt like it at the time, but as time goes on, it's like, I need a little more, We got to fucking beat Miami. They got two guys that are humming. Like Ayuk needs some help, boys. Deebo will be fine. I mean, Deebo's battling, but like Christian,
John Jennings needs some help.
If the knee can't go, the knee can't go. That's the problem. Like Deebo will battle through whatever. If your knee's fucked up and you can't cut, if Christian McCaffrey can't cut, he can't play. Right?
Well, and if Deebo had the same knee issue, I think we'd be saying the same thing, right? Like part of it is the knee. It's not a quad contusion.
But also the difference is the Niners just used a second-round pick for Deebo, and they've had him the whole time for cheap and now expensive. Like this was. Listen, I can be prisoner of the moment as much as anybody. It's hard when you're in it, the good and the bad, but it was a bold move. It was a really bold move. No different than the Rams last year with Von Miller, but ultimately with Von Miller they obviously ended up winning the Super Bowl, but Von Miller literally had a sack week 18, first round of the playoffs, second round of the playoffs, third round of the playoffs, the Super Bowl. Like 5 straight sacks in their biggest games. And a couple of those were like in the biggest moments.
Yeah.
Didn't he sack Jimmy? I think on one of the last plays of the game before they went on the drive. Like I bet at the time they're like, that sack might have won us the game. So it's like, does McCaffrey? For the Niners, it kind of starts right now trying to win. Who knows? I mean, Minnesota, some of these teams, like you're still playing for seeding. I talk about them like they won the division. They definitely have not. I mean, so there's a lot on the line these games. They are not 9-2 and in cruise control.
Also, trading for a player for a stretch run is different than acquiring the player to play his prime for your franchise, right? Like they got Von Miller. Von, we need you 3-month rental. Let's go.
Very baseball rental.
Let's go. Like we just need you. Like if McCaffrey was a 4-month rental, you'd be like, rest him this week, get him back next week, and get him ready for the playoffs. Like just run him into basically like Mostert style, like run him into the ground. That's not what this is.
Raheem, that's not what I meant.
There is that element, and hopefully that comes into play for the Niners. But
I think Cheetah tweeted like, "Mozart out here causing shit."
Also, you're a team that gets a lot of injuries with a guy that has an injury history, and you're the one taking that risk, right? If the Jets or whoever had been the one acquiring the Chiefs acquiring McCaffrey, it would feel almost in some weird way like a little less of a risk. you know. But the Niners, yeah, I don't know. It's I'm trying to think of the right analogy. Like they have a cat, and then they get a lot of players that are allergic to cats, and then they're like, we got rid of the cat. Like, yeah, but there's cat hair everywhere. How come all your players are still allergic to cats? I don't know. Weird.
Is your cat still coming to your place?
Saw him yesterday. Had a stare down with him. He got on top of the fence, and I was determined to stare him down. So I just stare. But this cat's tolerance for a stare down is much higher than my tolerance for a stare down. I don't want to stand out there.
You know what I think the Habermans need?
So he turned his head because he heard a bird, and I disappeared. Into the night. No, it wasn't at night. It was during the day. But
you know what I think the Habermans need?
A crow, a dog,
a dog,
and
and the dog would deter the cat in that action.
Maybe. But I don't want a barker. You know what I mean?
That's part of the risk. Get a rescue guy.
You don't know what you're getting with a rescue.
Well, but you do a good thing for society.
That's true, but I'm not getting a dog to do something for society because the dog lives with me now.
Yeah, but the dog, it helps you really. You sit there when you're watching the game, you can pet him.
Yeah, look, maybe it'd be great. I'm just saying, I'm not. You know what I want to do is something for society. Let me go get a dog to come bark in my house.
But here's what you do. If you don't get it, you just put it on a chain or a rope. Like during the day when it just wants to chill outside, and that way the cat doesn't fucking sniff that area.
That's a great idea.
Or maybe they become friends and they start hanging out.
Also risky. Was there something else you want to go to the? Did we have? You said something we did. Niners, big game. Was there something about the offense or the defense? We kind of did those topics together, didn't we?
Yeah.
You sent me a tweet yesterday from a guy named John Chapman who covers the Niners about something that Matt Rule said on Peter Schrager's podcast about Nick Bosa, and I listened to the podcast. It was interesting. But I went and listened to it. And it turns out not only does he say something about Bosa, Matt Rule says something about Trent Williams to Peter Schrager. Take a listen.
You hear about Nick Bosa, like we literally had on our call sheet this year, because sometimes in the fourth series he would rotate out. We literally had plays that were 97 out plays.
If he's out, we can run this. If he's in, we can't.
Yeah, we had one person is Bosa in? Is Bosa in? Is Bosa? Oh, he's out. Okay, hey, let's call.
That's good. Yeah.
No one's gonna match up with him. But I think the best player in the NFL is I shouldn't say one of the, to me is Trent Williams. I think I thought it was funny earlier when there was that thing about his stance and all that.
If he does this, he's running. If he does that, he's passing. Yeah.
I'll tell you something.
Doesn't matter.
Trent Williams, if he told me he wanted to stand on one leg to block people, I'd say, cool, do your thing. He is just elite beyond elite.
That's pretty good. A lot going on there.
Trent had a pretty good rebuttal on that. We have 7 million run plays. Right, you have no clue. He's like, we literally just installed 10 new ones. You have no clue what's coming. So even if you do know, you don't know what run play were coming.
Mm-hmm.
He's right, because on that play where I said that McGlinchey was blocking the ghost, Trent just stoning the dude on the other side. I mean, it doesn't even look like he's trying. Like Kelsey when he runs, he's kind of hitting him, and the guy just stopping, and the pocket's just perfect on that side. McGlinchey's over here blocking nobody. Trent went from well-respected, I feel to the Niners being viewed universally pound for pound best player in the league. No doubt about it, best left tackle. And, depending on what position tickles your fancy the most, top 2 or 3 non-quarterback in the league, no one argues, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know in my football consuming life that everybody has talked about an offensive lineman the best player in the league as much as, obviously Mahomes. I'm not saying, but just everybody has put one guy in that category. And I think part of it is that he's so athletic and you see the athleticism on display. I think that's part of what it takes to be maybe viewed that way. I don't know, but I feel like Trent Williams gets more offensive love than all the great offensive linemen of our lifetimes used to get. Did you hear any? I didn't hear. Did you just say something? I didn't hear it. If you did, you froze. I was just saying, I feel like Trent Williams gets more love for being elite than most of the offensive linemen of our lives.
I do wonder if it's partly because we've every team now has a $20 million pass rusher and he just stones them all. It doesn't matter who he's playing.
Maybe.
I do think early, when we were younger, like the Orlando Paces, maybe.
Yeah.
There have been a few and far between.
I don't
And
know,
everyone
like,
kind of agrees.
Trent's got, like, a
Remember
cool
the Anthony Munoz talk in the 80s?
Larry Allen.
Yeah, it's
Larry
rare.
Allen for sure.
I think because there's probably always a handful. There's
Always a handful. You froze at this like this. Isn't it Shanahan? He's got an all-star team, John. Kyle Shanahan has an all-star team, right? Like if Bosa's a pass rusher, Trent Williams a left tackle. Like so, two premium positions. He has Matt Rule. It's like, yeah, these are two of the best players in the league. Kyle has them both. Now we could argue Micah, we could argue Myles Garrett, whatever. But part of it is Matt Rule played against the Niners this year, so that's probably why he goes to the Niners. Like he also mentioned Grady Jarrett, who's just in his division, as he thinks one of the most underrated players in the league. But
Niners ended his career in the NFL.
Yeah, Niners ended his career. So maybe that's part of it. But
it's fresh.
The Niners do have it all. I mean, that's one thing when you watch them. It's like it's so obvious that they have an all-star team, and that it shouldn't feel so hard to make the playoffs every year with an all-star team.
Well, they win this week. It's like they are. I would say they're playoff bound. You get to 8-4, like they're winning 10 games.
Yeah,
this game's pretty big, guy. I mean, this game, just the breathing room of being 8-4 with these next couple games, like feel like you're locked to win one of the next couple. That you're in fantastic shape. This game feels like it's going to be really hard, and I just can't get around that because it's. You know what's weird? We're numb to when we hear these comments. Like, yeah, no shit, Trent's sweet. Like, yeah, no shit, Debo's unstoppable. Occasionally, I'll just have a buddy like, I remember last year when Debo, like in the offseason, they're like, God, we just watched some cut-ups on Debo. Because, when the draft comes and you start doing some comparisons, you start looking for comps and stuff. And it's like, is he the best player with the ball in his hands in 2020? Like, they had the best player with the ball in his hands in 2021, and the best left tackle, and one of the best pass rushers, and one of the best tight ends.
Just named the defensive player of the month.
And it was like they barely got to the summit to get to the playoffs. I mean, it took like the most miraculous drive since like Joe Montana in like the mid 80s just to win a week 18 game. It doesn't have, you can circumvent that with, to me, a win. Like you just win these like next 2 weeks. Obviously that'd be winning 3 straight home games, which at the beginning of the schedule, when we looked at it with Tampa in, I guess maybe we downplayed. We didn't view Miami and Tampa on the same level.
Not at all.
Ironically, Miami's way better than Tampa. The Saints were probably what we thought. Wouldn't be a playoff team, but they'd be a tough little bunch. They were actually probably worse than we thought. But in an individual matchup, I actually had this theory. Like, you watch a lot of teams that have 3 and 4 wins around the league. Like when you watch the Lions play, you watch the Saints play, when you watch the Cardinals play, when you watch the Raiders play, when you watch Denver play. I mean, all these teams are not going to go to the playoffs. How many teams around the league that are good would take like a large percentage of their starters, right?
Yeah.
So this is not college football that when you watch a team that ends up going 5-7 or 4-8, that you go, God, that team's got a fucking ways to go. Like I watch the Saints, it goes like, Jesus, if they just had like a solid quarterback and a decent coach, like they're playoff bound. You watch the Raiders, it's like, God, if Josh McDaniels just knew how to win some close games and not blow it, are they fucking 6-4? It's just all, this is the NFL. And you know what's weird is players and coaches talk about all the time, like any given Sunday. It really is. Like the Texans really suck. But for the most part, and the Rams suck right now because their 4 best players are in casts and have broken ankles or high ankle sprains. But I would say the majority of like the top teams drafting in the top 10 in the NFL, like the Atlanta Falcons, the Detroit Lions, like these teams
feel like
beat you.
Pittsburgh sucked to you? I put them closer to suck than like.
I would say less fun. Like I would rather play
quarterback.
I'd rather play the Steelers than the Lions.
Yeah, their quarterback is just.
TJ Watt could get 3 sacks in a game.
That's true.
I don't do 2 glove guys.
Kenny Pickett is just, man.
2 gloves indoors too. Small hands.
They got to get another quarterback in there.
That look is terrible.
It's awful. It's so bad. Also, 2 gloves and then not a big arm. Like it's one thing, 2 gloves, but man, the grip, you just rocket the ball. But 2 gloves, like just to throw it 20 yards on that, it's like, ugh.
Well, I would say 2 gloves guarantees you an average arm, right? We have 2 examples of the last like 5-6 years, and the Teddy and him, and it's both average to below arms. This guy, I would give Katie Pickett one thing, kind of run around.
Yeah, man, I would
100%
draft a quarterback in the first round this year if there was a guy I liked there. I would like the Steelers should definitely, if they can just get Michael, if they like Michael Penix and he's just there, they should take him. They should take him.
Yeah. But he's a good example, right? Did he just have a one-off devastating injury, or is he an injured guy?
Well, he's had multiple injuries.
Yeah.
Multiple knee injuries.
So I think that's immediate red flag.
Yeah.
Like Penix is probably going in the 3rd or 4th round because of that, right? Like Michael Penix is not going in the first round.
He had a first-round level season this year. He's the nation's leader in passing.
Right? He's good.
He throws a fucking gorgeous ball. Dots deep balls. Like
sneaky decent athlete.
Yeah, when you take the knee brace off him, sneaky, which he has this year, decent athlete. But just like right now, I bet you could put him on. I mean, not like right now, tomorrow, but to me, he could start for a third, like the bottom third of the league. He's better than their guys. I would say right now, like next year, 2023, he's good enough to be a bottom third starter.
Better player than Davis Mills.
Better player than Davis Mills. But so the question is, like, you tell me, like, what does the medical say? Both I think multiple ACL. Actually, this is 5th year in college football. The previous 4 years all ended with injury. All ended. 4 straight years he ended with injury, John.
Yeah, I would be stunned then if he gets drafted in the first 2 days. He sounds like a 3rd-day pick. Now he might be the first pick of the 4th round. That's pretty legitimate concern in a much more physical environment, right? Like
he was in the Big Ten before. Yeah.
But I mean, now he's facing Grady Jarrett, Nick Bosa, Aaron Donald. I mean, these guys. The guy that put 2 on the ground. I don't think it's like
contact. I don't think it's contact injuries that are the problem.
Well, no, he doesn't look small. Well, that's even scarier. So it's like he honestly could fail. I would say it's not inconceivable. I love the guy too. That if you just go, it's the 7th round and Michael Penix hasn't been drafted because like everyone fails him.
Oh, if he has like a degenerative, like he doesn't, he's only got 3 years left on his knee or something like that.
Well, that happens every once in a while, right? A guy that just dominates college or has a great season, no one drafts him, and it's just not like, well, he's a good guy. Like, what did he do? Kill someone? No, it's just everyone failed him, right? It's not something you brag about when you fail him medically.
Kill someone?
Well, but that happens in a draft. Like, how is this guy still on the board?
I saw somebody.
He doesn't have 7 toes.
Right. Who was the guy last year that? Wasn't there a guy last year? I don't know. Maybe not. I thought there was a guy last year.
The all-time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Donovan West, who everybody thought
is like a week before the draft. Maybe it was a month before the draft, a week before the draft. Lyle Collins, girlfriend died, and even though it's like he was a high character guy, it's like, could he have done it? And it's like, I didn't do it. Like, what? But he fell in the draft, the 7th round, but the Cowboys took him. Remember, he was like supposed to go in the 1st round. His girlfriend died. Didn't die, murdered.
What was the wait, he went what pick?
I think it was a 7th round pick.
Lyle Collins?
The dude, the Cowboys right tackle forever?
I thought he went like in the 2nd or 3rd round. No? I thought Jerry like sat down with him and took him in the 2nd round. Maybe I might be wrong. Sat down. Remember he had like his mom, maybe not, because he had like the whole family over to dinner.
Undrafted.
Oh wow. So I guess I'm thinking of Jalen, the linebacker from Notre Dame that Jerry took.
Yeah,
where did he take him?
2nd round, because the doctor.
Undrafted. Holy smokes.
I do love that their trainer wears a cowboy hat.
An actual cowboy hat, not a Dallas Cowboys hat.
No, just a cowboy hat. Yeah. Like he could just roll right into a George Strait concert knowing you just look like a.
Oh, Vic, thank you. Yeah. N'Kobe Dean was one guy that everyone's like, well, how come no one's drafting this guy?
Bad shoulders.
Jeremiah from Notre Dame says the kid Flash.
Small.
Yeah,
he just goes by 3 letters. Okay. Though I listened to somebody and they made a great point. The Browns built their defense academically, right? Based on numbers to just dominate the pass. smaller guys, every guy that can run. They loaded up on pass rushers, corners, and Jeremiah Cora Wosu, who is they can't play the run at all. But they were like, it's a passing league, spread it out, corners everywhere.
Yeah.
You could just run the ball down their throat. And I heard someone say, like, I'm an analytics guy, but it doesn't, like, their defensive tackles are just atrocious players. But they just, like, we don't care. We just pass rush. But you just run it down them. And their defense this year has not been good. It's like, well, there has to be some balance of, like, yeah, it's a passing league, but it's like, wait, we just run it for 6 yards of carry every play? Call another run.
Owosu Koromora, says Zane.
I think it's a hard balance, right? Ideally, you just want, like, it's why ideally you want complete players, right? Fred Warner. I mean, the Niners have 8 of them. It's like, yeah, he never has to come on the field. He can block everybody. He can make every tackle. He can cover everybody. Like, that's ideally what you want.
Yeah.
Even Hufanga, right, is not, I wouldn't call it a complete player. You've seen it sometimes when teams can get him just running in space. It feels like that is the spot. And that, to me, like, is always going to be his question mark. If I can get him manned up, and the Niners, and this is where D'Amico deserves a lot of credit, he avoids that situation for the most part, which I think is going to be fascinating if D'Amico does get a job. Like, it was pretty clear he was just kind of the next guy in line, smart guy. Doesn't quite feel like they have that guy now. And most teams don't, right? I mean, most teams, when they lose a coordinator, it's like, well, if there is not just a no-brainer next guy, like, what do? You start interviewing guys. Vic, where he's like, well, I kind of want to change it to a 3-4 defense. You're like, I kind of like what we got. It's just a hard. There's not always. I mean, in theory, it makes a lot of sense. But do you want Nick Bosa playing 3-4 outside linebacker? Like, I like him playing a 4-3 defense.
Not really. Well, how about Vic? Like, Vic can't run a 4-3.
I mean, when you were just like, it'd be like saying
you can't just speak another language.
Yeah, it's like, I'm trying to think of like some great, Jimmy Page or Slash, like they're not going to play rock music. It's like you want them to like play country. Like, no, it's like he's a fucking genius at the 3-4. Like, he basically wrote the language.
All right. Dante Whitner thought it could work.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it would because he's a smart, good coach. And I think if you're Vic, one thing that's I would say
the DC at Stanford.
Yeah, I just think that makes Kyle Shanahan is you want to work for an offensive coach who is tough and cares about that shit, right? Like ultimately working for LaFleur, like they're just not a tough operation. If I was Vic, I'd be interested. I don't know. McVay might not have the players or the picks, but like McVay cares about defense.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Some coaches just don't, or the culture of the team. Like the Eagles, it means a lot to them. Like they'll invest a lot into it. Some teams like, we just want to score fucking points.
Right.
I give McDaniel credit, even though it might not have been his decision, like making a pretty bold trade for a pass rusher.
And drafting one. Well,
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Guess not. Yeah. Here is our week. Check out I mentioned earlier, but by the way, how good does that field look?
What time's your alarm going off Saturday morning? Are you approaching it like a Sunday London game? Like, I'll just pick it up when I pick it up, even if I do. Or
the U.S. soccer game?
Are you going to watch it?
U.S. soccer game?
Yeah.
I think that'll be I'll pick it up when I pick it up.
I think I'm going to get up.
7 a.m. 8 a.m. for you?
8 a.m. for me.
That hard?
No. Saturday, sometimes I ease out of bed at like between 7:30 and 8:30 on a Saturday.
Yeah. You got to hear Alexi Lawless is angry all the time. So I got to hear what he has to say about he'll be pissed about something. These guys no excuses. Like, well, they just advanced. Actually, I watched who's the other guy? I like
Clint Dempsey.
Yeah, Clint Dempsey. I like him. He kind of ripped a few guys the other day after the win.
Legendary tough guy, I would say, for the Americans.
He just thought he was like, what has this guy done? It's like, what has he even done? I thought it was good. So you got the 7 a.m. We got the 5 o'clock Friday night. We got the 7 a.m. USA game.
What time's USC kickoff?
5.
Don't love that kickoff.
You'd rather like a 6. Honestly, I think it sucks to play it on Friday. Like a short week championship game.
But they've been doing this now the whole time.
I understand it's just part of the TV deal they have. I'm just saying it sucks to play a short week championship game and to you're playing on the same night as UTSA and Buffalo.
Yeah, but those games those games don't matter. Like you could argue.
I know they don't matter. I'm saying
you truly get just a by yourself game.
Yeah, but you could get a by yourself. I mean,
no, you can't.
No, I don't can't. So. But I just think it feels a little.
I think the entire country's watching you.
I agree.
Like, listen, it's an honor for the Dogs to get on Fox. I mean, is the SEC championship game going on right during that time?
Yeah, 1:00, Georgia LSU.
So it's like, it's.
How about
Fox? What channels? SC Utah on?
Fox.
So aren't they kind of telling you?
Tell me what?
Well, like from that time slot is better than the Mountain West.
Well, the game is just got to be Friday. Yeah, I mean they would rather have that game Friday than have it up against the SEC game at 1:00 on Saturday.
That's my point.
But like they didn't get to make that choice last week.
No, it sucks for the teams and the players, but I think for the conference and the individual, like West Coast football, I do think it's a benefit.
It's better than playing at 7:00 on Saturday night.
I think 100%. Yeah.
What do you think would rate bigger? USC Utah 5:00 on Fox or Clemson North Carolina 5:00 on ABC? I think USC Utah.
Yeah, but you're just
this particular year.
You're just battling the South. I mean, clearly that
5:00 Fox. So here's the deal: we got Michigan, Purdue at the same time. Somebody made a point the other day. They're like, I know no one's picking Purdue, and nobody should be picking Purdue, but just that the Big Ten championship game is just unlike every other game that gets played in the Big Ten because the Big Ten, the weather, the conditions really matter. And then you just go in indoors on turf. And then Purdue actually had some fast guys on offense and like a solid quarterback. You want to pump that game up a little for yourself? You can think.
Isn't Jeff Brom viewed as like a pretty solid coach too?
He's got like how many doesn't he have 4 top 5 wins or something? They knocked people off last year. I feel like several years in a row they've beaten a top 5 team. Big test for Harbs. Boise, Fresno, Dogs are a 5-point underdog. That game's 1:00 on Fox. Tulane, UCF, 1:00 on Fox. Georgia, LSU, 1:00 on CBS. Morning game, TCU.
Do all the smaller conferences just play it at the team with the best record or the team with the tiebreaker?
So. Yeah.
So basically, the Power 5 are the ones that pick the neutral sites.
There's the potential that the best game is the 9 a.m. game, Kansas State, TCU.
Adrian Martinez.
Is he still the guy? Or do they replace him?
He got hurt a couple weeks back.
Yeah. I did see this.
I'm kind of rooting for TCU to lose. I mean, I don't know why.
I know why.
Well, just makes for a better.
You don't want to watch him in the playoff.
Yeah, no. But I'm also a little disappointed. Clearly, Ohio State's the next team up. I would rather
be Alabama. I know.
Though I don't really care. I guess you can't go wrong with either one of those.
No, I think when one lost CJ Stroud, I don't know. An Ohio State Georgia first round matchup wouldn't be terrible.
I would say that everyone involved, especially the TV networks, would rather have Ohio State, Georgia, and Michigan, USC than TCU involved.
Absolutely.
Because if USC and Michigan win this week, right, they will be 2-3. You'd think, or no?
No. If TCU wins,
yeah,
I think TCU would be ahead of SC.
So then Jim would have a very, very winnable first round game, huh?
Yeah. Because TCU is just, you're talking about an undefeated. They are a Power 5. They're not,
And they got they got an NFL player, NFL quarterback, NFL wide receivers, NFL running back.
They've played good teams this year.
Yeah.
I mean, teams that aren't, Oklahoma, these teams were ranked when they played them, not necessarily now, but.
That field goal thing was pretty sweet.
It was really impressive.
Yeah, it was.
It was really impressive. So it's a good Saturday. And then we talked about the other day, a few good. I mean, the other game Sunday that you mentioned was Bengals Chiefs.
Bengals Chiefs. Yeah.
So Jets are must see TV right now. Is it funny that Dolphins have to be one of the best teams in the league to get noticed? The Jets just can be. I'm not even complaining. Whatever the Jets are is interesting every year. I love this story of like Robert Saleh might have Like they might be just pulling it together. They might be all right as a program, as a franchise. They need another quarterback, but
They do have one major issue that's hard to just figure out.
QB.
Yeah, they just drafted
But
a second overall.
when you have a QB that like is unlikable, that's such a great NFL story.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like,
thing, great NFL story.
It is hard to just get out of that situation.
That's where
Like, you just can't. Mike White just can't be your quarterback every year, more than likely.
No,
right?
Garoppolo will be their guy in 2026 when the Niners finally let him go.
Feels like Garoppolo's gonna have a lot of options this summer.
Season's not done yet, John. This season, Jimmy has not finished this year.
Jimmy's growing on me.
I know, but he hasn't finished the season yet. There's a lot of football still to be played.
Very true.
A lot of football still to be played. But I thought you had a good take on the reported birthday attendance for Russell Wilson. Can you share that take?
Well, Florio wrote a headline the other day that he thought that everyone, Mike Kliss, who's a well-known Denver Broncos shill, and wrote that in a positive way that half the team showed up to Russell Wilson's birthday. And Florio took the other side that what an eye-opening stat that is. That where was the other half?
The original story was a positive story. I didn't realize that.
Well, Kliss just reported it, right? Maybe took a picture. I'm not quite sure. He just quoted Kliss in there, kind of ripping like it's bullshit. This guy always takes the positive side. Florio destroyed it. I would have guessed 5 players max would have showed up. I think half. If you would have told me just the number 20 plus players showed up, and when you say half, it's more than that, I would have said, "Holy shit, Russell got that many people to show up for his birthday." It's pretty impressive.
Maybe an in-season birthday on an off day. There are probably 15 guys that wanted to go and just had already promised their kid we're going to the zoo today or something.
100%. And I think it was Tuesday night, so they practiced the next day. I saw Albright said, so it wasn't Monday where they had the full day off. It's one of those, like, I got to go to work tomorrow. Some people operate a little different on a school or work day.
So he had like 40 people from, probably 35 plus some team employees probably came. And John, that is why you buy a home with 9 bathrooms.
He has more 12. He has more
12.
He has more bathrooms than touchdown passes. I saw someone put that stat up. Was it 4 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms?
Yeah, it was something like that. Something crazy.
Honestly, if you have 5 bathrooms, if you have a mansion and 5 bathrooms, like that's a lot of bathrooms. Because obviously the master bathroom does not count.
It does.
Right? But I'm just saying, like, only the husband and the wife use that bathroom for the most part. The kids' bathrooms are always wide open to anyone that wants to use it, right? And then there's always just the random bathroom that's usually by the kitchen or whatever that you can also use. So if you have a big-ass house, you can always do your business in whatever kids they have bathroom. It's like, oh, go use Little Billy's. Like, fuck, do whatever you want. And there's always just a bathroom that's just somewhere in the house, either by the living room or by the kitchen that's just available.
Yeah.
12 is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, whoever developed that house.
Cam Inman Johns tweeted from Niner practice. Christian McCaffrey's participating. Knee okay. Debo not seen. Eric Armstead 3rd day in a row. And Cam Inman included a little video here of a Christian McCaffrey running around and moving, which would be great news for the Niners against the Dolphins. But I don't think this really changes any of our takes from earlier, which is you'd like to go a month and then 2 months and then a season without having to manage a mysterious knee. So good news. But I think everything we said still stands, right? Doesn't change anything we said earlier, in your opinion.
Nope.
So, but that's good news. Good
Hopefully
report.
Debo just sleeping in or something.
There's Cam got the watermark on the video because that'll do 400,000 views on.
Cam's got a big following on Instagram. He's got like 100,000 followers or something.
I know it's massive.
How did Cam get so big on Instagram? Do you know?
I don't know. I think his daughter just manages his account for him. No, I'm kidding.
I thought it was like
he's
his
good.
account, and then I looked. I was like, Jesus, don't sleep on Cam Inman.
No, absolutely don't. No rain gloves for Jimmy. Also good news. All right. On that note, thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Adios, pelota. Have a great weekend. By the time we talk Sunday, who knows? Deion Sanders might be the coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. That'll be a great story. Did you see the other day?
Yeah, it was funny.
Oh my God, it was so good. It was so good.
He's clearly going, right?
I think so. Yeah. All right, everybody. Adios.
Later.